Hello and welcome to today's JavaScript tutorial. Today we are going to make this nice analog clock that you can see goes around. Very simple, very easy. So let's just make this a beautiful clock, and you can see that also the hour hand goes according to the minute as well. It doesn't jump from 1 to 2 all of a sudden. So let's see how we're going to make this. I'm going to use CodePen as my editor, and first let's start with the HTML structure. Very simple. We need some IDs. That is, for making IDs here, we use hashtag, and then let's say clock, press tab, and you have a div with ID of clock. Then another ID inside that, and let's just call it H for hour hand, and then another one, let's just call this one MH for minute hand, and the last one is going to be SH for second hand. So we are going to leave them empty, so nothing else. Now the CSS, however, because it's not about styling, I've just made the CSS. I'm going to explain what I've done here. So let me uncomment this. So we have our clock ID that you just saw. I positioned it as relative because we are going to position the items inside it, that is these hour hand, minute hand, and second hand, absolute. So we're going to move them around here. So the parent should be positioned as relative. That I've set it this height and width, and this background image, which is this clock, a background size of cover, so it covers the whole div, and a margin 3 rem top bottom, and auto left and right, so that it's positioned like in the middle. Then I've targeted the children of the clock, which are HH, ID, and MH, and SH. I positioned these hands as absolute, the border radius of 5 pixels for this, and then transform origin bottom. This is very important because without this, let's see what happens. So what we are going to do is going to add degrees to the rotation 1 second by 1 second for the second hand at least. So we are going to use transform and rotate, and then the degree, let's say 90 degrees. So now you can see here, it just rotates here on this axis from the bottom. The bottom doesn't change. But if I remove this transform origin, you see that this what happens. So if I change it to, I don't know, 40 degrees, you can see the axis is at the center now. We don't want that. We want the bottom to be constant, and then it should change on that axis. That's why we need this transform origin. And then what we are going to do later with JavaScript is to change this degree one by one. That's why it's going to move. And we are going to use also a setInterval so that that function runs every second. Okay, now it should be back to normal. Now after that we need the hour hand to style it. I've set a width, height, top, left. So this is the distance from the top, and then from the left, the background color and border bottom. So for you, this might change, so you need to adjust it yourself. And then a minute hand as well, the same properties, width, height, top, left, background, and border bottom. Solid red, this red thing here. And then for the second hand again, width, height, top, left, and background color. That's basically it for the CSS. Now let's get to the JavaScript part. So we are going to target the minute hand, second hand, and hour hand. So let's just create variables for them. So let HH for hour hand, and we're going to grab it from the document by using querySelector method. And we're going to select the ID of hour hand first. So this is the way we select the IDs using hashtags. Now let's just copy and paste it here for minute hand as well. So MH for minute hand and SH for second hand, and let's also change the ID here as well, ID of MH and SH. So now we have access to these elements. Good. Now let's also create a function now, and let's call it timing. So we are going to have a function const timing, and timing is going to be a function, and that function is going to do what? That function is going to grab the date and time. Well, that is basically the time, the hour, minutes, and seconds. How do we do that in JavaScript? So by using the new date object, so new date, we are grabbing our the date inside this variable day. Then let's have also one for hour. Hour would be day that we got, which includes the dates, but we need the get hours method to get the hours. So this would give us the hour of the day. We do the same for minute. Minute is going to be equal to day dot get minutes, and the last one is going to be let second, and second is going to be day dot get seconds. So this is how we get access to minutes, hours, and seconds. So now we have access to these. But what do we want to do now? So we want to change the property. You just saw it here in the transform. So transform, as you just saw, if I add transform rotate property, so rotate, let's say 45 degree, and you should see the change now here in a minute. Well, it's not updating yet, so let's wait for it. So now you can see 45 degrees, right? It's changed. If I add 90 to this, you see it comes here, right? So we are going to do that. We are going to, by JavaScript, we are going to add degrees to these elements, but they should be different. So for example, I want to add to second hand, again, that transform property, rotate, and that would be, let's say, I don't know, 10, for example, degree, and that brings it a bit like so, right? So I want this to happen one by one. So 1 degree, 2 degrees, 3 degrees, 4 degrees, something like that. Every second 1 degree should be added until it's 60 degrees. And then, 360 degrees, that is a full turn. So for that to happen, every second 6 degrees should be added. So that's 60 by 6 means 360, right? So every item here should be 6 degrees now. So every second 6 degrees should be added to this. That is, if it's at 5 seconds, the degree should be 30. 5 by 6 is 30, right? So we are going to add this using JavaScript now. So let's do it here, down here. Let's say, let's start from seconds now. So we had access to this element here, right? This HTML element, which is basically this hand. So we refer to it as SH. We need to change the style, which is transform property, and set the rotate to something, to like 45 degrees, for example. Something like that, right? But we are going to do that dynamically. That is, we are going to change this not like this. We are going to say, use backticks first. Why backticks? Because we are going to use values here. And if you use backticks, which is the sign to the left of your number 1 on your keyboard, or right under the escape key. And here, instead of 45, well, this is a rotate. Instead of 45, we should put the value. The way you put the value inside a backtick is by using $sign and curly braces. And inside that, well, that would be actually dig here. Inside that, how do we calculate the amount of rotation? Ah, dear. How do we calculate the amount of rotation? That will be second multiplied by what? By 6, right? So if it's like, for example, 60 seconds, that will be 360 degrees. So it would be full turn. If it's, I don't know, 10 seconds, that would be 60 degrees. It would be here, 60 degrees. So every second, this should happen one by one. So 6 degrees, 12 degrees, 18 degrees, 24 degrees, 30 degrees, something like that. Now, we should do the same now for also minute. Minute is the same, of course. So let's just grab this, copy and paste it here. And instead of SH, let's do MH. And instead of second, let's use minute. So whatever the minute is, multiplied by 6, for example, is like 5 minutes, that would be 60 degrees, right here. And then the next minute, it would change it to this position. But our hand is a bit more complicated than this. So let's just target this anyways. So style.transform, and it's equal to backticks rotated. Now, how much should we rotate that? So dig, and let's close it off here. What is wrong? Oh yeah, this should not be. There is something wrong. I can't. Oh yeah, okay. So we don't have anything inside this. So let's say we have the hour. So how is hour different? So hour, we cannot just multiply it by 6 because we have 12 hours, and multiply by 6, that would be 72 degrees, right? So it doesn't make a 360 degrees. So we should multiply the hour by, so we have 12 hours, right? We should multiply it by 30, right? So whatever it is, we should multiply it by 30. That is, if we have our 1, that is here 1, it should be 30 degrees, right? We have 10, that would be 300, no. Yeah, so if you have 2, if you have 1, that would be 30 degrees. If you have 2, that would be 60 degrees. If you have 3, that would be 90 degrees, right? 90 degrees. Okay. But the issue is that if I do this, if I say multiplied by, what was that, 30, then the thing is, it would jump. So for example, let's say it's 1 now, it's 30 degrees. Then when it's about to get to 2, it jumps from here to here all of a sudden. So it doesn't go through like this process. So it would jump from 1 to 2. We don't want that. We want this to also move according to the minute. That is, if minute is like 30, we want the hour to be here. Like if it's 1:30, for example, and the minute is here, we want the hour hand to be here in the middle. How do we calculate that now? We have calculated this only. So for this, imagine the minute is 30. The minute is 30. So this hour should be in between these two. So if we say that whatever the hour is, whatever the degree of the hour is, add to it whatever the minute is divided by 2. Let's see how that works. So if we have 1.5, let's say 1:30. So 1 would be 30 degrees. Then 30, which is here, would be divided by 2, and that's 15. So 30 plus 15 is 45 degrees. And 45 degrees is exactly here. That is where it should be, right? And imagine it's like 60. It's all over there. It's like 60. 60 by 2 is 30. So 30 and 30 is like 60 degrees. So it would be here. That is, well, 2 actually. So that is how it works. Now let's run the function. But how do we need to, how should we run the function now? We need to add a event listener to window that we say that listen for an event. And what is that event? Load. So whenever the window loads, we want a function to run. And what is that function? Well, of course, that would be this timing function that we just created here. So that would be timing. But only once? No, we want it to run every second. Every second. So that we see the time is passing here. That is why we set interval. Set interval. And inside that set interval, we have the timing. And we have a time which is 1000 milliseconds. Basically, every second. So this this function will run every second. So Yeah, there is a misspelling here. Uppercase L, and that should go away. And then now we should see this working. And we do. Wow, awesome. Yeah, actually it is exactly 2 p.m. here in the Netherlands. So this is working quite well. I hope you enjoyed it and you learned something from it. Please don't forget to like and subscribe and leave a comment if you want to. And thank you very much for watching and listening.